Hello, everybody. My name is Bennett Tchaikovsky. Welcome to a preview of my Accounting 301A class, and I'm teaching for Cal State Fullerton this spring of 2023. Getting a lot of questions about the class, so rather than answer all those questions at once, why not make a video? All right. So coming over here, I'll kind of talk a little bit more about this when we're actually going through and taking the class, but this is really to answer some of the questions for the students who are considering to take the class this spring of 2023. How the course will be taught, the class is shown up on the schedule of classes listing as mostly in person. What does that mean? It means that more than 51% of the grade of the class will have in-person meetings. For the first few weeks of the class, I'm going to be teaching the course in person. Meaning that every Tuesday and Thursday, you'll have to come onto campus. After the first exam, my general thought on this is to have Tuesdays be online and have Thursdays be in person. The week after spring break will be online, and that's just from a more of a health standpoint. The in-person lectures will not be recorded. The online Zoom meetings will be recorded and posted as unlisted on YouTube. So I don't record the in-person meetings, but I will record any online Zoom meetings. You may sometimes have to remind me to say, Tchaikovsky, please start recording. The class will be taught on the Irvine Valley College campus, right? So this is in Irvine. So if you have another class that you have to get back to at Cal State Fullerton, this may not be the right class for you to go through and to take. I only teach this class for Fullerton. This is my second time doing it. It's on the Irvine Valley College campus because we have a special program called GAP 4+1, which is a program that was started up by Irvine Valley College with Cal State Fullerton in 2016. So over here, parking, if you have a CSUF permit, should be free. The room is to be determined. The internet will be provided to you while you're on the IVC campus. So your grade is determined. 75% of your grade is going to be based on exams. Exams are going to be challenging. We'll talk about that momentarily. But the homework will be done on Wiley Plus. That's a departmental policy. So you're going to have to use Wiley Plus to submit the homework. I generally try to select questions on Wiley Plus where I have videos already prepared for that, and I'll show you that momentarily. But that's how I generally try to go through and do it. And then your paper, which will be comparing two publicly traded companies, is going to be worth 130 points, or about 13% of your grade. For the paper, I'm going to give you opportunities to get the full amount of points. However, that's going to require that you submit early. If you submit late, that's not going to work out. You need to be looking for a job now. You're an accounting major, you're about to take intermediate accounting, right? But you have to start looking for a job now. The biggest mistake I have heard from my former students is that they do not go through and start looking soon enough. Join Beta Alpha Psi, join the Cal State Fullerton Accounting Society. You have to figure out how you're going to get employed. Most employers do not want to hire you once you've left school. They want to hire you while you're in school. So please, 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 you want to start looking for a job now. When it comes to this, you're also going to have to know when you're going to have your 150 done, right? That's what you need educationally to become licensed, and also having a resume and a LinkedIn profile. Right, so right over here is that if I come over to, if I type in Bennett Tchaikovsky, Irvine Valley College, and I click on this right over here, this is going to take you to my faculty website. Oh, for interviewing, sample resumes, success guides, here is a sample resume that you are free to copy on, right? So you can copy this, make your own, right? That's a sample resume. Over here, these are all different videos about how to go through into interview, videos on student success. Over here, this is like an ebook. This is an ebook that I wrote about, like Secrets to Career Success, through Roger, which is now UWorld by Roger. It's written a few years ago. but this is very, very, this is something that, again, still applies today. You have to get yourself ready to go through and get a job. I cannot state that enough. The other thing that you're going to want to do is that the 150 semester units are also very important. When you get hired by a firm, they do not want you to be going through and taking classes while you're working for them 80 hours a week. So coming over here, it's not going to be that much unless it's the Final Four. So over here, completion of 150 semester units. If I come down over here and I click on this part right over here, I get to this sample spreadsheet. On this sample spreadsheet, if you complete it and send it to me like one of my former students recently did, this is her spreadsheet. You can basically go through, and this is the sample. If you send this to me, I will go through and help you go through and review it, right? So in terms of determining where you are with regards to the 150 semester unit requirement, you want to write out everything so that I can give you the most complete assessment. So remember, while we're here, like, look, accounting is brutal. It's by far one of the most hardest, challenging majors at a four-year school. And it's meant to be that way because you're learning a skill. So if you're going to be putting yourself through the academic torture of accounting, you want to make sure that you're going through and preparing yourself for the rainbow at the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? Go for it. Like, you want to go through and you want to get a job. Make sure you're going through and doing that. Okay. Now, about Accounting 301A, this is an extremely challenging course. You're going to have to be taking, you're going to have to study a lot on your own outside of the class. I'm going to go through that. For exams, I do not drop any tests. So I will publish the dates of the test prior to the start of the class. That's how this will work. If you're not there for a test, there's nothing I can do about it. If you are a DSPS student, please let me know if you have a learning challenge and you have to take your test with accommodations. Not a problem. I will definitely work with you. But please, 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 you have to know that I do not drop exams in this class. So it is what it is. But I'll talk a little bit more about that beforehand. Homework is going to be done online. You'll have to also do a paper comparing two publicly traded companies. I've gotten rid of the class project. Now, here's what happened in spring of 2023. My exams are all problem-based. And part of the reason why I'm making this video is to share with you what happened in the spring 2023 semester. This also had a lot to do with those students that were coming to me. And when I look at this right over here, I had 17 students drop. That to me is something why I'm making this video now. I don't want that to happen again, but you need to understand that before you take my class, why did those students drop? And whenever a student drops my class, I'm always talking to them because I really want to find out, is there something that I could have done better to teach you the material? Overwhelmingly, the answer was, well, I took financial accounting. All of my questions were multiple choice. And they didn't tell me they checked it. I didn't ask them that, but they didn't feel as though they really learned anything. My philosophy on teaching financial, managerial, intermediate accounting is you are going to do problems, and that's the way the exams are going to be. You're going to get problems. Why do I use problem-based exams? I can give partial credit if I use a problem-based test, right? I can give partial credit. Also, you're learning a skill. It's not the skill of how do I manipulate a multiple choice test. No, I'm teaching you the skill. When you get to the CPA exam, that's when you're going to learn how to take their version of multiple choice questions. That's when you'll learn how they do their multiple choice. And it's kind of funky, but that's when you get there, that's what you'll do. But what also on the CPA exam though too, is that if you look at it, if I go over here to Becker CPA Review, and again, there's a lot of great review courses. Becker is one of them. Rogers CPA Review. You got to find out what's best for you, or UWorld by Roger. When you come over to take the CPA exam, right? Intermediate accounting, it's about 6.5 of these modules. Or I should say, yeah, about 6.5 of the modules. This module here has stuff from consolidations, and then this is governmental accounting, which you'll learn on your own, and you'll never use it again. So coming over here, though, in terms, if you look at the different, if you go through over here and you look at like different, topics in terms of different like simulations, when you get to the exam, it's not just going to be multiple choice. You're going to have to go through and solve problems like over here. Oh, calculate cost of goods sold and ending inventory using under FIFO, using perpetual inventory system. Use it under, use it FIFO periodic, which is going to be the same answer. LIFO perpetual, LIFO periodic. And that's what you're going to go through and do. So what I'm really trying to prepare you for is for your career. And it's also to kind of go through and to help you get ready for the exam. So, and I can tell you right now, I am constantly talking with former students, employers about like what they need to go through and do, what my students need to have in order to go through and to be successful on the test. Now, going back to this. So when the students did not pass my class, I asked them, when you took financial accounting, how were you taught? And they said it was all multiple choice questions. They didn't really learn it. They weren't forced to go through and to write it out. I'm going to tell you right now what 70% of those 100 points on the first exam are going to be. I'm going to give you an unadjusted trial balance. You're going to have to be able to prepare adjusting journal entries, right? We're talking like loans payable, loans receivable, depreciation, straight line, revenue adjustments, expense adjustments, those kinds of prepaid insurance, those types of things, right? So you'll have to know how to do adjusting journal entries, the basic ones that you should have learned in financial accounting. You'll have to prepare a multi-step income statement. What does that mean? Sales minus cost of goods sold is gross profit, less SG&A, operating income. You have to prepare a statement of retained earnings, beginning retained earnings plus net income minus dividends, ending retained earnings, and then a classified balance sheet. Like, can you put, current assets versus non-current? Okay, so that's going to be, so when it comes to the exams, right, you're going to have 4 tests. For the first exam, you're going to have a previous slide, which is what I just described, which is 70 of the 100 points. Plus, you're going to have like a theoretical accounting inverted pyramid you'll need to memorize. That's a very important document, and it's based, and this is going to be new to you. And it's because I want to teach you different things. When you learn to embed in your mind, when you don't know how to answer an accounting question, you'll be able to figure it out. Over here, for the homework packet, you'll have to basically do the basic financial statements. So here's the thing. Most important thing you can always do is to admit what you do not know. If you don't know the answer to a certain question, you need to go through and admit to it, right? So if you learned accounting, right, if you learned accounting through multiple choice, you've never done an accounting problem, that's okay. But to be successful in my class, you're going to have to take the homework packets I have from financial accounting and work through them. Now, these homework packets that I have for financial accounting, I'll give you the question, give you the solution, and I'll give you a video to it. You can see if you go scroll through my YouTube channel, if you do some searching through it, you'll basically find a lot of videos that are basically based on that. So that's exam 1. It's about 100 points. Exam 2 is worth a lot more than exam 1. So it's worth almost double the amount of points. But exam 2 covers discontinued operations, beginning retained earnings adjustments, balance sheets, statements of cash flow, present value, revenue recognition, And these are going to be some more new topics. However, their foundation comes from financial accounting. If you know how to do bonds with the effective interest method, or with, if you know how to basically value bonds and then do interest using or determine interest using effective interest, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Can you prepare a statement of cash flows? Right? Those are things that you're going to need to know how to do coming into this class. Now, if you don't know how to do it, again, I'm going to give you the materials to go through and study. But if you had a really bad financial accounting class, I shouldn't call it bad, but if it wasn't problem-based, then to be successful in my class, right? I don't want to see you be one of these 17 students. I want to have everybody do amazing in my class. But if you're unwilling to put in the time prior to the start of class, this is going to be absolutely brutal. So that's exam 2. And again, this video, like my whole thing in doing this video is that if you say Tchaikovsky, you're crazy, which I am, and in terms of accounting education, absolutely yes. But I want you to know that these are my expectations, right? And my job is to over prepare you for when you get to the second semester of intermediate accounting, which is significantly more brutal. I've taught that once. I might be teaching it for Fullerton. We'll see. I don't know. Exam 3. What's covered on this? Now, this one is worth 150 points, so it's a little bit easier. But this is going to be covering receivables, bank reconciliations, inventory costing, dollar value LIFO, lower of cost or market, cost retail methods. So for this one, I have homework packets that cover a lot of adjustments to accounts receivable, bank reconciliations, and then inventory, which you're going to have to go through and do before you take my class. Now, with these 3 exams, you will only have an hour and 15 minutes. So what does that mean? You're going to have to be very, very fast. You're going to have written out these solutions multiple times, because you'll have an hour and 15 minutes to do. It's going to be, you're going to have to put that pedal to the metal. If you're a slow test taker, this is the time where you're going to have to really go through and figure out how to step it up. Now, with my class, the advantage you have is I can tell you what's going to be on the exam, right? I've told students like, hey, this is what's on the test, and I still get an average of 60%. Why is that the case? Because if you don't put in the time to study and do the questions repeatedly, you will not do well on the exam. Now, why am I doing this? 1, I want to be able to recommend you to any employer, right? So even if you get a C in my class, I'm still going to recommend you to any employer because you went through my academic torture of accounting 301A, right? So you're going to, I will absolutely recommend you to any employer, but you have to do the work. And I can just tell you that this class is a lot of work. This particular exam is worth 150 points, so it's not as worth, it's a little bit less than exam 2, a little bit more than exam 1. And it's just because the material in general, in my opinion, isn't as challenging as some of the other material. I think exam 2 might be one of the tougher ones. Going over here is exam 4. What did we cover? Depreciation methods, non-cash transactions. How do we determine goodwill? How do we impair goodwill? How do we impair assets? How do we deal with intangible assets? How do we do with investments, right? How do we deal with equipment sales? This is your final exam. You're going to have 2.5 hours to do it. It's also a very challenging test. But again, if you come in preparing for the class in advance, you should be in pretty good shape. So looking over here in terms of the exams, I'll talk a little bit more about that during class, but I want you to also kind of take the time, because if you want to see how I teach accounting, the best thing for you to do is to go through and to take a look at some of the different videos that I have over here. So this is about the 8th time I've gone through and I've taught accounting. And I also have over here about how to go through and prepare for upper division intermediate accounting. over here, I'm making, so what I'm also doing too is that so I've been teaching intermediate at IVC since the fall of 2016. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So I've taught it at IVC for 7 semesters, taught it at Fullerton for last spring. So I've taught this class about 8 times. And so if you want to understand how I teach, if you go through some of these overview videos that I have, it can kind of give you a better idea about how I go through and teach the topics. I like to use a lot of public filings. Why do I do that? It's because when you are talking to an employer, you're going to be looking at publicly traded companies, right? So the more familiar you become with publicly traded companies and how they do their filings, the better off you're going to be career-wise. So if I come over here and I look at some of my playlists, what you're going to be going through and finding is that I've got over here, this is basically for Wiley Intermediate Accounting. So for this particular playlist, I have problem walkthroughs for all of these different questions, right? So I basically have walkthroughs for every single question that you're going to be going through and doing essentially for basically for the particular chapter. So the more time you can spend going through these, you'll be preparing yourself for class. But also remember too, the more time you spend now means that when you get to the CPA exam, right, when you get to Becker's CPA review, which I think already closed out, just go back over here again though. This is the thing, why do you want to basically put in this time? It's because when you get to these topics, it's going to be easier for you to go through and study. I had a student, and by the way, I talk to my former students constantly. If you want to talk, I will probably do another video that has former students on it. But again, if you want to go through and talk to one of my former students, and if I talked to him and said, well, hey, you got an 88 on FAR, what did I do right? And he said, well, when I went to go through and study the material, it felt like I wasn't seeing anything for the very first time, that you had actually taught us the material. The worst thing that can happen, and I've seen this with students who are taking the exam, is they get to Becker, and this really is a result of the pandemic, is because when they took intermediate accounting, they didn't really learn it. They didn't really retain it. Because of that, right, when they were going through and doing it, when they get to the exam, they didn't know what was going on. They had to go through and relearn it. And I've even heard from partners at accounting firms that there were a lot of people that were going through, and there's a lot of associates that are going through, and they're basically choosing to kind of go through and they're choosing to become enrolled agents because the exams have become, or passing the CPA exam has become too formidable. So again, the more time you put into this class, the better you're going to do in accounting 301B. And the other side of it too is that when you get to the CPA exam, it's going to feel more like a CPA review than you actually learning it the first time. Your goal is to get through that CPA exam as quickly as possible. And when we start class, I'll be going through more information about how you should basically structure it so that you can try to go through and get through as many of the parts as you possibly can. So this is just, again, this is an introduction in terms of how the class will work. I can tell you that this class will be extremely challenging. If you have a 40-hour-a-week job, if you've got a lot of stuff going on, do not take this class. Take it at night, possibly at Fullerton. Great instructors there. But again, if you're taking my class, you really, really, really have to understand the time commitment. And, I'm not lying to you, although I am an attorney and a CPA. And so part of me would say, oh, Bennett, you're not, what's going on here? You have to understand is I want you to be successful. I want you to pass my class. My goal is to have you basically, I want you to kick butt so that when you're basically going out and you need help getting a job or whatever else it might be, I really, really want you to be successful. And one of the things I have is my accounting alumni group. I've got about 362 members. These are my former students. Basically, job posting board. I'm here to help you with your career, right? That to me is obviously intermediate accounting is a lot of fun, but this to me is much more interesting, is how do I help you basically get to like that next level. So in any event, that's my overview for Accounting 301A. Hopefully this answered some of your questions, but I'll be posting this and look forward to hearing your comments, and I'll see you in class sometime in January. Have a great rest of your weekend this weekend, and we'll see you soon. Have a good one.